Hey everybody, welcome to the Linux Cast episode number 3 for June 2nd, 2017. I'm your host, Matthew Weber. I'm joined by Ricky Williams.
What up, what up?
Alright, so let's tell a story, Ricky. I have a story. So I finally got Linux running on a computer.
Yeah.
So I've been having problems for weeks and weeks on end. So I bought a new Dell laptop that came today. And I knew it was coming for like the last week and a half. So I finally was able to just say, screw my old laptop and delete Windows completely. And that's what allowed me to install Ubuntu. It turns out that laptop will not support dual boot of any kind. And one of the biggest problems I had on that Lenovo laptop was trying to get into the fucking boot menus, because there's no way to act. So normally, like when you start at your computer, up on one of the corners, it'll tell you press F12 to get into the BIOS, or F10 or whatever to get into boot menu. This one doesn't do that, and those buttons don't work to get in. So I pressed every function key under the sun to try to get into the BIOS and the boot menu, and it just doesn't work. I finally got into something resembling the boot menu, and it wouldn't allow me to boot from a USB key at all. It wasn't really reading anything plugged into USB, period. And that's because then I had to go figure out how to get into the BIOS, which in order to do that on Windows, where there's not a way to get into the BIOS when it starts up, you have to get into Windows, go into settings, and have it reboot itself directly into the BIOS from Windows. It's a pain in the ass. Anyways, long story short, I finally got into the boot menu, cleared the got it booted from a USB key, and installed Ubuntu. And I learned something. So when Unity first came out, after they switched from GNOME or KDE, I can't remember which one they were on before they went to this. Anyways, when Unity first came out, I was like, oh, this is cool. It looks awesome. I didn't use it for very long, so I didn't get a chance to form an opinion. So I've been using this for like 2 or 3 days. I hate Unity. God, I'm so glad that in the next version of Ubuntu, Unity is going away, because God, it's terrible. And the biggest thing, so the biggest problem I have with Unity is that there's no good app launcher built in, right? So in order to get to apps, you can do it, at least from my stupid brain, the way you could figure it out is, or the way I only see to do it, is either searching with the little search app, which you have to click, which is like 4 or 5 clicks in order to get to things. Plus you have to type in things because there's no voice support, I don't think. Or you can go into the Ubuntu software, click on that, and then click into it has a list of all your programs there, but it's like 2 or 3 different clicks to get there, and then you have to scroll all the way down to the ones that you've installed personally. It's a pain in the ass. I did finally figure out there's a program that I will mention later when we go to Picks of the Week that solves the problem. So it's just terrible, Ricky. I miss KDE, because KDE has it's like a freaking, I don't know, from what I remember, it was has a start menu or something. I miss Windows. Your interface is terrible when I miss Windows. I know we haven't actually started anything yet, but I want to rant about Windows for just a minute. So in this new laptop I got, one of the things I was looking forward to most is that it has built-in Bluetooth. Whereas in all my other computers, I'd have to use a little dongle, which I just got last week. It turns out Windows doesn't like Bluetooth headphones all that much, and they bug out. So, and it's not just the new computer; it's on any Windows 10 computer I have. I connect to the Bluetooth, and then they automatically just disconnect themselves after I start playing music or whatever. They trying to get them to fucking work, and it just doesn't work. So I'm gonna have to, go back to the 1990s and actually plug my headphones in, which is terrible because this cord's like 2.5 inches long. Anyways, so I didn't have a good computing week, Ricky. And you have a little baby in the background.
It's my son. So
yeah, that's I'm just saying. So how was your computing week, Ricky? Hopefully better than mine.
Yeah, mine was pretty good. You sound about like when I started with Linux, I had a hell of a time getting it on, because when I started, I said, okay, Linux loves, old hardware, so I grabbed this old Dell I had. I said, okay, I'm going to put Linux on this guy. Had a hell of a time getting Ubuntu on there. Then I got Ubuntu on. I said, okay, I want to put Kali on dual boot. That was a nightmare. Finally got that on. Finally got them working good. I said, okay, I'm going to get a new laptop because this one, like, it had a tiny bit of RAM. The hard drive was, like, tiny. And I didn't want to go through, putting in a new SSD and I mean, you still got the bottleneck of the RAM or whatever. So I got a new machine, and then I had to go through the whole thing again. So, but I mean, I'm over that now. So now I got like 3 or 4 Linux machines all running, and everything is good.
Why aren't you just a nerd? Google keeps muting you, Ricky, because you're your kid. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
Google doesn't like your kid. That doesn't bode well for his future. Because Google's going to rule the world by the time he comes,
He'll be a Google star.
All right, so before we jump
star.
into our main topic of the week, let's talk about some of the announcements that have happened since the last time we recorded a show. So two things, mainly with Ubuntu. Obviously, we seem to get kind of narrowed in on Ubuntu because that seems to be the most popular one. But 2 things. They're abandoning Unity, thank goodness, for all sanity. And I think the main reason why they ever went to Unity was because they were going to try to do a mobile platform, and it just never took off.
Yeah.
And that will be in the next version, like 17.10 maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think they usually do.
Yeah.
14 and then 10. Or
Yeah.
4 and then
4 then 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
This upcoming one, which is 1704, right? Zesty Zappos, is they announced that was
with the new name too.
Yeah, it should be the one. Yeah, because they just got to the Z's.
So that should be interesting.
Yeah. So and then they announced Zesty Zappos, and that came. So that is the question. What will be the next one? Because they never did an A, right? So they started with like B, I think, which is so they started with W because that was Warty Warhog, which was version 4 something, 4.10 maybe. And then they went to H, which is hilarious, and then they went back to B. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, I don't know if they're going to do an A or not. I'm not sure. Anyways, those 2 things were announced. I'm really looking forward to Unity going away. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't even know which one. I think I installed 17.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, because, like, oh, great. I'm gonna have to go in a minute.
If you need us to pause, Ricky, we can pause, and or if you need to jump out, we can try a different time.
Okay, hold on. No, I think my wife said he's falling back asleep, so just go ahead.
Okay, well, we'll edit that part out. All right, so let's jump into our main topic for the week, which is our favorite command line commands or terminal commands.
Yeah.
Ricky, why don't you go ahead and we'll, instead of just listing them all one person, we'll go back and forth for
back and forth.
Times.
Okay.
And so why don't you go first? List your favorite one.
Okay, sounds good. So my first favorite is the alias command. So if you do alias in your terminal, it will show you a set of commands that you have set up as alias. And you can also set up an alias. So you can do a command like alias, let's say VC equals, and then you put the command that you want it to be an alias for. So for instance, one of my picks later is going to be Veracrypt. So if I want to run Veracrypt from the terminal, but I don't want to put the command in each time. I just want to type VC. I could set up an alias, so I could type alias space VC equals, and then single what do they call, quotation marks, I guess, single quotation. I put in my varicrypt command, and then ending single quotation. And once I do that, every time I type VC, it will run that command. But if I do it that way, it will only last for that session of the terminal. Once I close it and I restart, that alias won't exist anymore. So one of my actual favorites is if you go in and you do a sudo vim, or you can do gedit, whichever is your text editor, and you do the, I don't know what they call that, the squiggly thing, that squiggle, the one that's over the tab key. I
Yeah,
remember
that's,
the real name, I forgot now, tilde or something.
tilde, yeah.
Yeah, and then you do your / period --rc, and that will open up in your text editor. That's your sort of alias command. If you scroll all the way down, you can actually edit that file and put in your edits that you want to use, and every time it won't go away. So this is a way. So once you go all the way down to the bottom, and you add in a bunch of your aliases, like I usually do. I do UPG instead of apt-get upgrade, or UPD instead of apt-get update. So instead of writing that out each time, I can just do UPG, UPD. I also do CLR instead of clear, just because if you're used to sort of the Windows DOS, the CLR command will clear the screen. So I put in all those sort of commands. It's really handy. What you want to do, let me just get it. I believe what you want to do after you put in everything, you save, because it's not going to actually take effect until you reboot, but you can actually source it. So you go source tilde / .bashrc, and once you do that, it will actually take effect. Now, I had a little issue where I did the editing. Where was I? I think I was in Ubuntu. So I did my editing. I was running my Terminator, and on the side, because I have two windows. On the one window where I edited it, I had all my aliases, but on the other window, for some reason, like, it wasn't system wide. It was just in that one window. It was really weird, and I ended up having to, like, I don't know what, I can't even remember what I did. But if you run into that, you may have to edit like multiple files. But it is like a kill. Well, it's my favorite command, because it just makes things really easy. Especially if you're typing out long commands, or one command a lot. Like, it's a lot easier to just do two letters than to do your whole command each time. So even for what is the searching command? I think it's apt-get cache search. I think so. So I just put that as search, so that way I don't even have to try to remember that whole thing. So go ahead.
Okay, so mine is the man command.
Oh, yes. That's a good
So
one.
if you're an imbecile, or you're new to Linux, probably mostly the latter, or I included the former because I'm an idiot. The man command is basically Linux manual command is what it stands for. And it's very versatile. It can show you everything about a certain command after you. So like you could do man cd, and it would tell you the things that regarding the cd command. You can also do man-k, which will give you depending on how you format it, it gives you page descriptions of the keywords or the command itself. Same thing with apropos. It can activate a local mode, or it can search for different cat files, or regular just standard files. It'll tell you the location of them so you can find the path. There's so much you can do with the man command, which is great. So that's the reason why it's my favorite, because it actually allows you to get help, and it points you out. Because the worst thing you can do in terminal on Linux is to use commands that you don't know what you're doing. So you can you can delete directory, and delete something that you really don't want, shouldn't be deleting, especially if you're working in root, which you shouldn't do all the time. You should just do that for one command or whatever, and then go back to regular access. So if you can, but using the man command will allow you to at least have some idea of what you're doing. If you find a command on the internet that isn't really thoroughly explained, there's some ability with the man command to find out what Linux has to say itself about what that command does. Now, some of the descriptions and some of the help that it offers are can get very technical, obviously, but you're working in terminal. If you're not willing to understand the technical aspects of this, you probably shouldn't be working. You probably should stick to the GUI, where you can't really mess anything.
Definitely not as root.
All right. So, or just move back to Windows. And leave it 12p. So, anyway, so the man command is my first one. Ricky,
okay.
Give us your second one.
My second one is the list command, or ls, and that, like when I first started, that was huge for me. So when you run ls, it will show you all of the files and directories that are in wherever you are in the file system. So for instance, if I'm in the home directory or downloads directory and I run that, it will show me all my files in there. Kind of like the dir command in Windows DOS.
DOS. You are so old, Ricky.
So I love the ls command because I would get I would be in the terminal, and I'd want to run a file or change into a directory or edit a file or whatever, and of course Linux is case sensitive, so I'd have to run that command to make sure that I'm moving the right file or copying the right file or whatever, and there's a ton of switches that you can add. My favorite switch to add is the -L, which gives you all of the information. So it'll give you like the owner of the file, the size, the modified date, all that stuff. You can do LH, which will make it human readable. So instead of giving you the size in like bytes or whatever, it'll give you in like megabytes, I think. There's just a ton of switches that you can add. I love it. Used it like a ton. And one thing to add to that, when you're in Linux, if you move a file to a location that doesn't exist, those files are gone. So that's why it is always good you do your ls command so that you can make sure that you're typing the right name of the file, and and if you try to copy a file with you like switch the case, all sorts of funny stuff will start to happen, so you kind of don't want to do that.
Okay, my next one is locate. So it's really easy to
Yes,
get
also
lost.
a great one.
Yeah, it's like I know I'm not showing very much originality here, Ricky, but there's just certain ones that I just these are the ones that I use, right? So after the man command, locate's my second favorite one because it allows you to basically search through your file system. So you could say locate um, -I, which removes basically it tells the operating system to not pay attention to capitalization. So if you locate space -I, and then you could search for say document files or history files or something like that, because I have a folder for like all my history articles that I write, um, and or a specific name of a document, and then it will list all the ones that match that search. So, and then you can put spaces or asterisks in between where you don't like say you don't know the full name of a document, you put in asterisks. I can't say the word asterisks in between the words, and it will tell the operating system that you don't. There's something in between there that you don't know what it is. So, and it's kind of like what are those commands like you use? Are those Boolean commands for like Google, Ricky? Or like
Yeah,
or quotation marks when you're searching Google? God,
yeah.
I learned those in college, Ricky. That's been 10 years ago. I don't remember. Um, anyways, the locate commands is just great, especially if you're searching for documents that you want to edit or you want to move around. Um, Especially if you've been fooling around with Linux for quite some time, you're going to have a whole bunch of files that are all over the place, especially if you're going to do everything in the terminal instead of using a GUI. So,
Yep.
locate is my second one. Ricky,
Yep, another great command.
yep.
Also useful when you moved move something and it's not where you thought you moved it to,
Yeah, you just better hope that you moved it somewhere where
where it actually exists.
yeah. Otherwise, you're screwed, man. You better hope that's not
Yeah,
something you actually
uh,
needed.
yeah, I learned that as well. Yeah, so my
Everyone learns that the
next,
hard way, though, Ricky. I just think that's one of the like it's like an initiation for Linux users to delete something or find something that has been deleted
yeah,
because you didn't do something correctly in the terminal.
yeah.
So go ahead and
So,
get your
so
third one,
my
Ricky.
next one is the grep command. I love that. So basically, what that does is it will. I don't know how to explain this. So, for instance, if you do a command like list USB, so it'll go through and it'll list all the USB devices connected, which could be a ton. Or let's say you list PCI, but you're looking specifically for the VGA card, the video card. So you're going to get a ton of devices back. What you want to do is you pipe it, and then you go to the grep command and you search. Yeah, it's for searching, I guess, right? That would be the easiest way. So you can use it to search for things, and it's super handy. Like if you're looking through a ton of stuff and you just want to search for one particular thing. So in my example, for instance, if you list PCI, you're getting a ton of devices. You pipe it to the grep command and you search for VGA, and it will single out only the lines where VGA is in that line. So for instance, if you have a massive document and you're only searching for an address, you could, you know, do your command to go through the document, whether you tail or more or less, whatever, and you pipe that to grep, you put in your address, and it will only show you those lines where that address exists. So super good command if you're searching through a ton of stuff looking for specific things. I think you're muted.
I hate mute because I have a mechanical keyboard and I was banging away on it like a monkey. All right, so my third one is a little bit more complex in that it's kind of a series of commands. Basically, there are four of them that are use the most often, and they all have to do with permissions, file permissions. Chances are you won't come up with this unless you're a fairly advanced Linux user, but we use this all the time when I was at work. But basically, especially if you're going to use a Linux machine where you're going to have multiple users, especially on a network PC. Like if you're going to set up like a media server using Linux, you'll probably come across this a little bit. chmod, which will modify file access rights. SU, which will allow you to become temporary super user. CHOWN, which will change the file ownership, and CHGRP, which will change the file's group ownership. You will, like I said, you if you're just the only person on a Linux machine, you probably won't come up with a situation where you actually have to use any of these in terms of file permissions, unless you download some programs from the internet. Every once in a while, you come across a Linux program that downloads with the wrong permission set, and you actually have to set it so that it there's usually things that are in beta where you download them and the permissions are set for another user. You have to go through and make sure it's changed to your username. So the problem with permissions in Linux is that they're really, really complicated. So you have to actually. My best recommendation, I'm not going to go through everything with Linux permissions here because it's just way too complicated, and even I don't understand everything. So the best thing is if you come up into a file that says you don't have permission, even if you're running in sudo, look up changing the file permissions. Some of the hardest things to do is especially if you're the only one on a Linux machine, changing a file that you don't have access to of somebody who's actually not on that machine. It's
that's a pain.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah. And this is where the ls-l command comes in, because it shows you the permissions too. So
yeah. So like I said, permissions can get very, very complicated very, very fast. So here's just an example of a string -rw -rw -r -. So that like I said, you're gonna see some really weird shit when it comes to permissions. And you get if you've ever another place that this will come into effect is if you're ever going to like SSH into a Linux machine, whether it's yours at home, like say you have a Linux server at home and you want to SSH into that, or use like FileZilla in order to get into like a web server that's running Linux. Permissions are also very important when it comes to that. The way I do it is really cheating, because there are some GUI options that allow you to change the thing. So it keeps you away from having to type like -rw -rw -r -.
Yeah, I never do it that way, right? I just use the numbers. I find the numbers so much easier.
Yeah, like what 7?
Yeah, like 777 is like full permissions, or I find it so much easier.
When I have to do it in terminal, I use the numbers as well.
Yeah.
But when you like use the ls-l command or whatever, sometimes it will come out and show you the letters, and that's just it can get very, very, like I said, it get confusing. So anyways, those are the third ones. It's kind of a group of ones that you'll have to use if you do permissions. So Ricky, let's go ahead and do one more, then we'll jump in.
Okay. So I only had one more left anyways.
Good.
So my last one is going to build on what we've been talking about. So if you're moving a file, you move it to somewhere you thought existed. Maybe you have the wrong cap. So maybe you're trying to move it to your downloads, but you put a small d when it should be an uppercase. And that place doesn't exist, the file's gone. Or maybe you're trying to move it to your downloads, but you forget to put the correct path. Maybe you didn't put the home and your username downloads, and so it's gone. So there's the really great one that I found is to use the -V switch, which is for verbose. You can do -V or -VV, which is like really verbose when you're doing a copy or a move. And what that will do is it will show you after where the file has been. So you do your, move, blah, 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 to blah, 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 -V. And it will show you after the file's been moved what it's done. I find that really handy because otherwise you execute your command and nothing shows up after. You jump to the location where you think the file is and it's not there anymore. So yeah, -V or -VV.
Okay, my last one is a lot more simple than the last one that I gave. Is simple make directory, mkdir. I wasn't going to choose this one, but we've talked quite a bit about moving files into places where they don't exist. So if you're even just minutely positive that or minutely aware that the place where you're moving a file might not exist, make a directory first or make a file first, something to move it into, even if you are mistaken. That way you know you're not going to lose something. So mkdir will allow you to make a new directory, and then touch will make a new file.
Yeah.
So there's a couple there, and then I'm going to give a couple that kind of go along with that. RM, which will and then what's the other one? I can't remember. God, I had them all listed down here.
RM.
Why isn't it? Oh, that's where I actually need it. Why can't I learn how to write things, Ricky? Sorry, I missed it. It's up here. RMDIR, which will remove your directory. Okay, so RM and RMDIR are the bane of Linux users everywhere. So you really want to be careful if you're going to delete things. So,
but it won't delete if there's any files in there, right? If you
right, you always because when you're deleting something, you have to start from the lowest possible. I think it's lowest. I can remember. It's either lowest or highest, whichever one's the lowest possible path, and then work up. So if you want to, I don't know. Is there a command that will delete a directory with everything in it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there is. I think there is. You can overpower it, and it will take it out.
Yeah, but you have to be in sudo for that, right?
I mean, you probably.
I don't think that's just a regular command. It has to be super user. All right. So, anyways, those are my last ones. So let's jump into picks of the week, and I'm going to go first.
Okay.
So as I said at the beginning, I had a terrible time with Ubuntu in terms of actually finding my list of applications, and I think it's just because I'm so used to both Mac and Windows where they put your list of all applications just right in your face. You get the start menu or the dock or launch. What's that? What do they call that on Mac OS, Ricky? I haven't used it in ages.
The Launch Center.
Launch Center, yeah. Where they just have all your apps. I mean, literally, they're all there. You install one, that's where it goes, right? Unless I miss something completely on Linux, that's just not the case. I mean, there's a place where they all are located, but it's just not as easy. It's just not like a one-click thing, and you get a list.
Yeah, I know. It's
kind of got to drill in stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so my pick is Albert Launcher. So if you ever used Alfred on the Mac, Albert Launcher is just like that, but only for Linux. And now I've only been using it for a couple days, but so far it's kind of great. You just type in, the application you want, hit enter, and the application launches. Or type in the name of a song if you want to listen to a song, and it will launch your music player.
So it's like Finder.
Yeah, it's just like Finder. It's fantastic. It's obviously you have to install through GitHub. So if you don't know how to do that, it can get a little odd. Anyways, there's another launcher called Synapse. That's
I heard about that one before.
But I don't care for it nearly as much, mainly because okay. So aesthetically, it's not as pleasing as Albert, because Albert looks a little bit more like Alfred. So
Yeah.
That's just more of a personal preference. But I think Synapse is going to have a more robust ecosystem of like plugins and things. I'm not sure because I haven't used it in probably 10 years or whatever. So it's been a long time. But anyways,
Yeah.
Albert is my pick. Ricky, your pick.
Okay. So I've got 2 picks. So the first one is VeraCrypt. And what VeraCrypt is for, it's for encrypting stuff. I like it because it's multi-platform. They have it for Mac OS, for Windows, and for Linux, which is why I've used it on Windows. On Mac OS, to run it though, you have to have, I think it's called Fuse. But anyways, we're talking about Linux. So if you want something to do encryption, it will encrypt, what do you call it? You can encrypt like a directory, you can encrypt a whole partition, you can encrypt a whole drive. There was one, I think it was called TrueCrypt, which everyone really liked, but that fell off, been abandoned, and VeraCrypt, I think, came from that. So yeah, really great. You can run it from the terminal, or there is a GUI that you can also run. So yeah, it's just totally awesome. My second pick is Kodi.tv, the forums. Awesome resource. But in particular, if you head in there, if you go under, I think it's under the platforms, you should be able to find iOS, and it will give you instructions on running Kodi on your Apple TV, iPad, and iPhone, which I personally have found running it on my iPad is so much easier than loading it up on a box that sits in my basement, because I hardly ever, have time to come down here, whereas my iPad is always with me. It is a bit of a pain if you're not Apple dev, because you have to re-sign every 7 days. Whereas if you are a dev, you sign it once and it will last for, I think, a year. But I mean, if you're jailbreaking, it's the same sort of thing. You have to re-sign every 7 days. There's ways to get around it, but I would rather go through the Apple-esque way of using what is it called, Xcode, rather than giving my passwords to some site I don't even know who runs it or whatever. So there are ways around it, and they do give you those ways, but I personally just rather re-sign every 7 days. It's a little bit of a hassle, but at least I know I feel a little more secure.
Yeah. Okay, so that is it for the Linux Cast. We should be back in 2 weeks, which will be the 16th of June. And if you want to get in contact, you can do so. Email at thelinuxcast.com. The website is not up yet. And for the main reason that is because I haven't bothered, seeing how we've been kind of in flux in terms of schedule. Because somebody had to go and have a baby. I'm never going to forgive you for that, Ricky. Anyways, congratulations again, Ricky. I said
hey man, when I get old, I gotta have someone to look after me.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up.
I gotta have someone to burden.
Yeah. Anyways, you can follow me at MTWB on Twitter. Ricky is at Ricky_Williams1. The podcast is at the Linux Cast. I don't remember setting that up, but apparently I did. I don't. If I did, we haven't tweeted from it yet. If we haven't, actually, I think I did set it up. God, I don't remember. It's been so long since our last episode, I just don't remember anything. Anyways, so we'll be back in 2 weeks. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Well,
I think we might talk about why Linux hasn't gone mainstream like the other OSs.
Yeah, we can talk about that. All right. Anyways, we'll see you next time.
See ya.